We have a brand new advanced workshop. For those of you at home, it's a good time to get your booklets out. We'll explain a little bit about the booklets again. For those of you at home, I'm Dr. Steve Simonetti. It's a pleasure to be with you. There's only thing one worse than me live for these folks. It's me on video. Sorry. So, our booklet here, you'll see there's some lines on the front page, right? Today's about action. Today's about taking steps to live healthier and stronger than you would have if you did not understand this information. All right, so the basic workshop, as we mentioned, is in 2 weeks. For those of you watching at home, you've probably already did the basic workshop. Our agenda is, you know me, as I mentioned, I've had my hands around your neck, you better know me. The Natural Healing Seminar is our advanced workshop. We have refreshments. Help yourself. You won't interrupt me. We'll answer questions as we go along. We encourage participation. If it's something related to the topic, I suggest wait till the end of that topic. Chances are we might cover it. And then if it's personal and we need to talk about it afterwards, let's do that as well. So, here we go. We have a question for you all. Are we a healthy nation? How would you answer that? That's a resounding no, and everybody else is doing this, which is a neck exercise I learned that means no. Well, we spent over $3.8 trillion on healthcare last year, more than any other nation in the world. We have more doctors, more technology than any other nation in the world, and we take more drugs, and this is crazy. We are 5% of the world's population, get this folks, but yet we consume some sources say 70% of the world's drugs. But are we healthy? And if you weren't sure how to answer that, this is according to Gerard Anderson from Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. This country spends more resources than any industrialized nation by a wide margin, yet between 90 and 95, the United States fell to a position 23 out of 29 nations in terms of infant mortality. So we have more babies die within the first year of life, 23 out of 29 nations, and we were ranked 20 out of 29 in terms of life expectancy for women. Guess what, guys? Worse for us. 21st in terms of life expectancy for men. More current stat, 2007. There's some additional industrialized nations, 37, but guess where we are? At the bottom of the ladder again, 37 out of 39 nations. Now, the reason I bring this up is not to depress us, right? But for us to realize that we are on a road. We are on a road where 2 out of 3 people wind up with cancer and 2 out of 3 with heart disease. I'll tell you right now, there is another road. There are cultures that live to 100 to 120 to 130 years of age. My mom just passed recently at 100 years of age. And she followed the principles that we're going to talk about. And if one person can do it, we can all do this. Again, why is it, though, we are not a healthy nation? Why is it that we have more health care, more dollars spent out of our pockets, but yet we're less healthy? See, I contend it's because we don't know what health is. I contend we've been sold the wrong understanding. And to illustrate that, I'm going to ask you all a question. What is health? Is this an English-speaking group? I just want to be sure. How would you define health? Health is. Some ideas? Yes?
Mental, social, and physical well-being.
Mental, social, and physical well-being. That's the answer I wasn't looking for because you've attended a workshop. No, just kidding. How many people thought this, because we're going to go through that very thoroughly, health is feeling good. Health is the absence of symptoms. Health is me not with my back pain, my kid not with his ear infections, with the freedom of disease, right? Now, how many people do we know who felt great and then dropped with a heart attack? Felt great and was diagnosed with cancer. See, the fact is your heart will dysfunction for 3 to 5 years, replacing with abnormal muscle tissue before you ever get a symptom. Most cancers take 10 to 12 years of us feeling great while our bodies are very sick inside. It's like kind of waiting for your car to blow black smoke, waiting for symptoms, and then you change the oil, right? We wouldn't do that. But we do that with our bodies, the most amazing creation in the universe that we know of. And why is it we do that? Well, have you heard of this? For the fast temporary relief, if you have a headache in the evening, you take Excedrin, PM. You're old enough, you have Tylenol for who? For juniors. How do you spell relief? ROLAIDS. Hasn't been a commercial for many years, but we know the jingle. Why? Because of $17 trillion spent annually by the pharmaceutical industry. And do they spend it on research and development? Hardly. On what? On advertising. 2 out of 3 commercials are about what? A drug. And let me tell you something. They're very good at this. And don't get me wrong, drugs save lives. If you're an insulin-dependent diabetic, not type 2 diabetes, that's preventable. But you need insulin if you're a type 1 diabetic. But the fact is, these drugs enslave us. They do not promote health. I've never met anybody who has headaches because of lack of Tylenol or a lack of Excedrin. But this is how insane it is. The commercial starts. It's soft music. You're playing with your son in the backyard. Everything is good. You don't have your psoriasis. Those are some of my favorite ones. You don't have your psoriasis because you're taking the drug. Once they introduce, guess what? The side effects, the music gets a little softer, the screen gets a lot brighter, and then they say, but your eyeballs could fall out. You'll go to the bathroom every 22 minutes, and you might die because some of the side effects are death. And literally, you're all shaking your heads. Those are the commercials that engage us, and we still take the drug. Now, the point is, it's not the drug. It's the understanding and a mentality that I don't have to take care of myself because I could put myself in a system that's going to treat my disease. And I'll tell you right now, the absence of symptoms, no matter how you do it, through a medication, an adjustment, or a homeopathic remedy, a little less toxic, is not health. We're going to go through very specifically what health means. But I want to cover the other end of the spectrum. Does the presence of symptoms mean you're sick? And I'll give you an example. We go to Golden Hawaii, used to be a restaurant, I'm showing my age, many years ago here in Whitestone, and I order the lo mein, but instead of the lo mein, I get the to mein. That's food poisoning. And I want to get you to the phone to thank you for inviting me to this wonderful meal, but I can't get to the phone because my stomach is starting to ache. I'm starting to feel a little hot and feverish. Then all of a sudden something wants to come up, something wants to go out the other end. I don't want to get graphic, but I'm driving the porcelain bus, that's the toilet, for the next hour. Now you, on the other hand, I try to get to the phone and you passed on to an existence I hope better than this one. My point is, are these symptoms a sign that my body is sick, or are they a sign that my body is healing? You know, we have 3 kids. I always make this mistake, 3 kids. And we may have had 6 or 7 fevers, because I did 4, we have 3. And they would last 12 hours, maybe 24 hours. The fever would spike, and that would be it. Why? Because we recognize the purpose of a fever. Your body is infinitesimally smart. It raises its temperature, and virus and bacteria do not like heat. So it burns it off. Now, when we take something, are we aiding or interfering with what the wisdom of the body is trying to do? We get congested. Your body's way of getting rid of toxins and debris is to produce mucus and to cough. We've been trained, very conveniently, to take something, a pill, a potion, a lotion, to get rid of exactly what the body is producing to heal. And now what should take 12 or 24 hours may take 2 or 3 days. So look at symptoms a little differently than the way we have been. And that is the whole purpose of that first intro. Now, we are going to cover what health is, though. 100% health is, and I'm sorry for my back, it's going to be to somebody more than somebody else, it's 100% the magic F word, and it's not the F word my son is learning in school as we speak. It starts with an FU, I got you guys worried. It's 100% function. You'll notice sick people get everything because they never improve function. They just treat and change their symptoms. So when you break the body down to its smallest element, what has to function, folks? A bunch of what? What are these things? I keep drawing until you tell me.
So,
Cells, thank you. So folks, cells create tissues. Tissues create organs. Organs work in systems to create a healthy body. So we're going to go through today, what do we have to do to stay in this process? Because I'll tell you right now, we are either in that process or the cells are replacing abnormally. The body does not repair sick cells. It doesn't do that. It either replaces normal or abnormal, creating abnormal tissue, creating disease. And the disease is there, how long do we say? The heart, 3 to 5 years. Cancer, 10 to 12 years. Before the symptoms show up. And then we get rid of the symptoms, right? And we said you could do that a lot of different ways, but does that change the process that we are in? It does not. So we're going to cover in the 2 workshops everything we need to do to stay in this process. And I have to tell you this very quickly. It's not genetics. They spent $1 trillion on the Genome Project, right? To figure out how to treat us with drugs based on your genes. This is what they found. We have 40,000 chromosomes. You know what an earthworm has? About 30. We're 10,000 chromosomes better than an earthworm. But what the earthworm has, and we have, are epigenes that surround the genes, that are in every cell. And they're stimulated by certain things to make your genes active. So health is 80% your lifestyle choices. And this is what we're going to talk about tonight and in both workshops. 20% genetics. In fact, you can change your genes by your lifestyle choices. Now all the research is in epigenetics, because that's the truth of what our health is. So we're going to do a little review. So open up your booklets if you would. The first page, it'll probably say page 6 on the top. Don't let that throw you. Please fill in the blanks. You have our 37 or 38 year anniversary pen. I keep on forgetting how many years it's been doing this. Take those pens home with you for sure. And the booklet goes too. And for those of you at home, now's a good time to get that booklet opened. And it states this: health is not the absence of, what did we say? Pain or symptoms. In fact, pain or symptoms are the last 2 warning signals to occur with most disease processes. Research indicates how many years for heart disease? 3 to 5 years of our heart replacing with abnormal muscle tissue before we have a symptom. And how many years for cancer or degenerative diseases? 10 to 12, that is correct. And 100% health is achieved by 100%, what's the magic F word? Function. Thank God you didn't say the other one. And in order to have a healthy body, my body must have healthy what? CELLS's, cells. In fact, the quality of my life is the quality of my cells. And this is Dorland's Medical Dictionary definition. It's also the World Health Organization definition. We're going to spend a minute and a half on it because it's kind of important. It states this, and there are 2 parts. Health is a state of optimal physical, PHYSICAL, emotional, they say social, don't write that yet because I have a literary license, I'm speaking. I say spiritual, and we'll give them social well-being. Now the reason this is important is health is a balancing act, right? Everything in life is a balancing act. In fact, that chair you're sitting on, if one of the legs is a little weak, what does it do to the other 3 legs? It puts a lot more stress on them. I guarantee you, we could be in great physical health, but have no love in our lives, have no social activity, and we cannot be healthy. We need that. Or we could be the greatest lover, but we have no spiritual underpinnings. And if crisis happens or some major life-changing event, and we don't have something bigger than us that we believe can help us, or a purpose for this, that it's going to lead us to a better place, we may never get through that. So maybe your homework assignment for that front cover, a few lines we're going to fill in at some point. Where are we not working on one of these aspects? Because it's hard to work on all of them, admittedly. But it's easy to work on what comes easy to you. So, spiritual may mean going to church, a synagogue, a mosque, or it may mean spending time in nature. It may mean walking silently and silencing your mind. So, the odd thing about this, the second half of this definition states this: not merely the absence of disease and infirmities, which is the whole thing our medical system focuses on. See, I'm not putting down the medical way, because your doctor is as well concerned. I have doctors who refer patients, MDs who are friends, and I take care of MDs, but their system fails. It's not the doctor. What does a doctor study more than anything else? Anybody know? Pathology, disease tissue. They look it under a microscope, you make the rounds in the hospital, and then they cut you open and they know disease pretty well. And they study what next? Pharmacopoeia, the treatment of that with drugs. 50% of the schools offer electives in nutrition. We're going to spend about 40 minutes on diet tonight. Don't worry, we're going to end in about 5 hours. No, I'm just kidding. It's not in their purview. Treating disease is the only thing they know how to do. And thank God, if you're in an accident, they can sew you back together. But that's trauma care. It's not health care. So, according to Webster's dictionary, health is a condition of wholeness in which all of the organs, tissues, and cells, what's the magic F word? Functioning 100% of the time. Now, turn the page, please. We are moving on. We only got 58 pages to get to. Just joking. Healthy body equals healthy what? That's a hint. Cells. Thank you. Now, there are 4 essential ingredients the cells need to replace normally. Real basic. What do you think the cells need to replace normally?
Water.
Water's a little complicated. Take 2 hydrogen bonds off of that and you have what?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. So they need a rich supply of oxygen. The cells need water. Good water. We're going to talk about that. They need hormones and they need nerve energy. So let's be specific here, guys. Ready to go? If you put the cells in a petri dish or in your body and you give them a rich supply of nerve energy, oxygen, water, and hormones, I know you can't read that, it's a mess, and you get toxins out, and we're going to talk a lot about that and not overload with too many toxins in, we have the best chance of being in this process. If you don't, we may slip into this process. So, there are 4 essential things, and by the way, if you thought the person on your right, left was pretty smart, they might have been just reading the next line, because it gave the answer, a rich supply of oxygen, water, hormones, and nerve energy. I must practice the 4 following lifestyle choices. What do we need to do on a daily basis to give ourselves those things? Breathe, yes. And we're going to talk about that. Eat healthy. Well, for some, eating healthy is McDonald's and Twinkies. And for some, it's tofu and broccoli. One of those is good and one of those is not. We're going to term this consuming living waters and living foods. And you'll understand exactly what that means by the time we're finished here. Consuming living waters and living foods. Number 2, what else do we need to do? I'm going to spend, this is real crucial. Proper aerobic training. Somebody said exercise. A lot of people in the gym, they're working out. Are they healthy? They're physically fit. Are they healthy inside? Not necessarily, right? I worked out for 18 months, personal trainer. I got 1 muscle right there. Just kidding. Proper aerobic training. Where in fact, we're going to go through 3 types of exercise. And they're all important, but aerobic training. What does aerobic mean? With what? Oxygen. With oxygen. Also detoxes us, or with air. Positive mental attitude. Your mind and body cannot be disconnected. Somebody came in the other day, they said, Doc, you always so positive, so upbeat. Stop it, it's depressing. Just kidding. Number 4, Structural support. Proper structure. You ever see anybody walking around like this? I can't do it for 2 seconds rather than 2 minutes or 20 or 2 years. Structure determines function in every working machine. So, homework assignment again. Rate yourself. Right now you may not have a total great idea how to do it. 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. On consuming living waters, living foods. On proper aerobic training. On positive mental attitude. And on structural support. And I'll give you a second to write those in. But again, health is giving the cells what they need by practicing these lifestyle choices. That is what health is. I'll get my hand out of the way so you can read that. Alrighty, so here we go. Now we get to the meat and potatoes, which are not necessarily the things we're going to recommend to eat. Our bodies are composed of 70 to 80% what, folks? Water. In fact, there's a very delicate balance between how you get rid of toxins and how much water you have in your body. So if you don't have enough water, you cannot get rid of toxins properly, and they will show up as skin conditions, bowel problems, breathing issues. So you will also know one of the common signs of being dehydrated is you're lethargic and tired. If you're tired all the time, just drink water. Now, when do you drink? Well, we'll get to that. When do you drink water? We're going to get to it right now. Before the meal, after the meal, or during the meal?
Before and after?
I have a before and after. I have a during. Somebody's right. Thank goodness. Well, think about how the body works. At the sight of food, you produce a certain enzyme to digest this food. You smell it, you produce some more. Now, if you eat with the meal and then drink with the meal, does it make those enzymes stronger or weaker? Weaker. It dilutes. Now you're producing more enzymes. Your pancreas has got to work harder. So if I go out and I have a carrot juice and a beer or a water, first it's the water, then it's the carrot juice, and then I eat 20 minutes later or so, and I won't drink until 2 or 3 hours after I've eaten. Now, if you're not eating right, don't stop drinking with the meal. Because this is what eating right means. We are 70 to 80% what? Water. Guess what God put on this planet? Foods that have 70 to 80% water in them. Pretty serendipitous, right? What are the 2 basic sources of water-enriched foods? Fruits and vegetables. Now, I've read every diet, I've been on every diet, and they're all consistent with those 2 things, except the early part of South Beach and the Atkins diet, which is high protein, destroy your kidneys kind of diets. So 70 to 80% water. Therefore, water-enriched foods and the 2 basic sources, what are we filling in there? Fruits and vegetables. Now, a couple of things about water, folks. Where I grew up in Flushing, the water's pretty good as it is here. You need a filter. Where I raised my kids on Long Island, I don't want to bathe in the water, never mind drink it. The water here is good, but not that great. In fact, it has a lot of fluoride, which is terrible for you. It's a hard water. You need to filter. And you could get a Brita filter, but it's not too expensive to get an alkalized filter. We are all acidic. So it's very good that you do things. The vegetables are alkaline in nature generally. You can alkalize your water. These store-bought water bottles are mainly acidic. Almost all of them. It's also not great for the environment, and the leaching of the plastic, unless they're clear plastic, you get more of the leaching from that. So, filtered water, Coca-Cola, guess what? Registered as a food. I see a few heads pop up. Why? Because it, according to the FDA, contains 7 2/3 tablespoons of sugar, and they put caffeine, or you spit it out, it wouldn't be palatable. And I always get, well, I drank diet soda. Well, diet soda used to have what in diet soda? Anybody remember? Saccharin?
Saccharin.
Till they found out it caused what?
Cancer.
Cancer. Well, any diet product has NutraSweet or aspartame. You know what aspartame breaks down to? And formaldehyde. That's embalming fluid. I don't want to be that well preserved, thank you very much. Store-bought juices are heated up, pasteurized, kills all the nutrients, and then they're laden with sugar. Orange juice, the worst offender. There is so much sugar in orange juice. You are best off drinking what? Water. Plain and simple. A lot in the morning when you wake up because your body's detoxing, so you'll get rid of stuff. You want it. You again need a very delicate balance between how much water and how you get rid of toxins. Another homework assignment. Write down everything that's passed your lips in the past 24 hours. What percentage is made up of water-enriched food? Coffee is not a water-enriched food, I'm sorry to say. A typical American diet consisting of only 15% water-enriched foods is suicide. The cells cannot replicate normally. You cannot get rid of toxins. And again, what percentage of your diet is water-enriched food? You will be surprised. And lastly, drinking any fluid with the meal, what does it do to your enzymes? Dilutes or weakens them, making them more difficult to digest and break down your food. Now, this is crucial. You are what you eat, what you digest, and what you absorb. And you need to get this concept, folks. It's not what you put in your mouth. It's how you use it, digest it, and assimilate it, and absorb it. And it incorporates all your other lifestyle choices. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Did you know that we are more bacterial cells than we are human cells? Did you know we have millions of bacteria on our skin that keep it healthy and rich? Do you know we have, in our intestines, you have your colon and your intestines, right, where all this food goes. Then you have a lining of bacteria that isn't even you, and it's fairly thick. And then you have your blood. Now follow me. Those bacteria take what you eat, break it down, especially fiber, not water-soluble fiber. That's garbage. That's fiber cereals. And we're going to talk a little bit about that more later. But non-water soluble, oil soluble, which are vegetables. They take those vegetables, get this, break it down as a waste product. They produce small chain fatty acids, butyrate number 1. And this is how they measure depression drugs to treat people with. They drive 2 mice in water, and they watch how long they tread the water. They give one of the mice, or mouse, the bacteria in their intestine. And as that mouse produces these small chain fatty acids, they go up to the brain, and they clean the debris of all these transmitters from your thoughts, from the garbage we eat, and they clear out, decreasing dementia, Alzheimer's, increasing cognitive thought, behavior in kids. Now this is the killer, or the life giver, I want to say. In the same mouse, they sever the vagus nerve, which is part of your parasympathetics, and we'll talk more about that. And guess what the mouse does? With the bacteria, the mouse stops treading water. Do you get that? You have bacteria in your intestine, in your colon, that produce these small chain fatty acids, but the vagus nerve communicates. Your brain sends a message through this vagus nerve so that these bacteria can do their job. That's pretty amazing. So you're not just what you eat, it's everything you do. Health is not one thing, it's many things. So the 5 poisons of what to reduce or dramatically get rid of, hopefully entirely. Number 1 is dairy. Okay, when we get dairy, milk, cheese, yogurt, ice cream, what do we believe? And you know how I'm phrasing that question, I'm going to tell you we believe it, we're getting, but we're not getting it.
Calcium.
Calcium.
Calcium. What else?
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D. Protein, right? Well, first of all, we'll give you the biochemical and then the natural hygiene or nature's reason why that doesn't make sense. The calcium is wrapped up in casein, which is a substance they use to make glue. Very hard to get to the calcium. That's why, it's wrapped up in phosphorus. It's wrapped up in phosphorus. phosphates. That's why you don't drink a lot of carbonated beverages, because carbonated beverages leach calcium out of your bones, out of your joints. Casein is a substance that allows us to digest the protein, which we don't have from the age of 1 on. Which brings us to the natural hygiene or nature part of this. We are the only mammal not to be weaned. Every other mammal stops drinking milk once it achieves 3 times its birth weight. For a human being, that's how long? About 1 year of life. We drink milk for how long? Forever. We are also the only species to drink milk from another species. A goat drinks goat's milk. A cow drinks cow's milk. We'll drink any milk we can get our lips on. So the fact is, if you look at nature, we should be drinking milk for how long? 1 year. And where should we be getting it? From mom's breast. Now, with that, I know you're going to have some milk. So let's go through those. Soy milk. Avoid like the plague. Any soy product, including tofu, interferes with thyroid metabolism, with estrogen. If you want man boobs as a man, start having a lot of soy. If it's fermented like seitan or tempeh, it's much healthier. It's a better source and has some protein. But soy milk, forget about it. Regular milk, 2%, low fat, all of that is marketing. When they take the fat out, now it gets digested too quickly. And what will happen is the proteins pass through into your intestine through that barrier, and it's called leaky gut syndrome. And it can lead to allergies, autoimmune diseases, all these problems. So if you're going to have milk, get whole, grass-fed, regular milk, or coconut milk, or almond milk, or any nut milk. But be careful, you could buy them in the supermarket. You're best off grounding them yourself, because what they have is sometimes sugar, sometimes salt, and almost every milk substitute, and forget those other things that they have in 7-Eleven, that's not even food, but they have emulsifiers. And you got to be careful. Emulsifiers are in yogurts, almost every single ice cream. And emulsifiers are the gums. The Guarin gum, the Caribbean gum, anything that's a gum or that's a phosphate, like it has 8 syllables, this is what emulsifiers do. They coat your intestines and they cause that leaky gut. They cause the proteins not to get digested, leading to stiffness in joints, to autoimmune, etc. So, the best bet, have no milk. If you're going to have it in your coffee, and we're going to talk about coffee in a second, have almond milk, grind it yourself, coconut milk, but read the labels. Simply Almonds is about the best one I've seen. Simply Almond, that has just almonds and maybe a little salt. I don't think it even has that. There's a couple in Whole Foods, which we also call Whole Paycheck. They have some good cashew milks, etc. About coffee, and there's a lot of conflicting things. First of all, it's the most sprayed product that there is. Pesticides and preservatives. You must have organic coffee. So I grind my own. I go to Trader Joe's. You could grind it at Trader Joe's and not have a grinder at home. There's the Coffee Lab right here, which is in Whitestone, that has, and they're not too pricey, organic coffee. But if you're drinking some of that every day, it dehydrates you. You got to drink a lot of water. You got to replace the minerals. But again, you're getting a high level of pesticides and preservatives. So good sources of calcium. We kind of need to know that, don't we? Right? So good sources of calcium. Green leafy vegetables, about the best. Kale has 10 times the phytonutrients as broccoli, and broccoli is a great green leafy. Kale is also the most sprayed vegetable. Have to have organic. And North Shore Farms has some here, reasonably priced. Trader Joe's has kale. They have 2 different types. One's organic. But again, green leafies, nuts, raw, almonds are a great source of calcium. And these micronutrients are very, very important. So like magnesium you get from green leafy vegetables too, right? Salmon has a lot of calcium. Strawberries. Back to the nuts, if they're dry roasted, okay, but if they're not dry roasted, they're with all the terrible oils, which we are going to get to just about now, I believe. Fats and oils. Now, there are fats that are really good for us. In fact, fats you should have in every meal because there's something in a fat that tells you you're full and not to eat so much. In fact, fats, when mixed with a vegetable, a good fat, increases the digestion of the carotenoids, which is the most healthiest thing in vegetables. So when you have a good fat with a vegetable, a salad, or any vegetable, you're getting much better use of that green. So, what are the good oils? Omega oils. What are the bad oils? Everything else. There's omega-3s and omega-6s. Now the ratio should be 1-to-1, but we get the omega-6s in every chip. We get the omega-6s in every cookie. We get omega-6 oils terribly bad. And it's not that they're bad, it's the ratio. Now omega-3s, however, are great for your skin. They stop aging. They help in nerve transmission. So omega-3s, where do you get the best source of omega-3s? Fish.
Some.
Salmon, number one, has to be wild. If it's not wild, don't eat it. Tilapia is about, one it used to be my favorite fish to grill, is the worst produced fish in the world, tilapia. But so is salmon if it's not wild salmon. Has to be wild. Also, you get it from avocados, or good oils. Avocado also has vitamin E. It also has fiber. You could eat an avocado a day. Extra virgin olive oil is a great oil. And we're going to talk about not to cook with, and we'll talk about that in a second, but on a salad, extra virgin olive, greatest dressing. And by the way, the dressings have emulsifiers. The dressings have sunflower oil. You can eat the greatest salad and ruin it with sunflower oil, canola oil, which is corn, which they put in our gas. There's no nutritional value to corn. All of those other oils. Anything hydrogenated. If it says hydrogenated, that's a man-made oil. And it's terrible. I think we're done with oils, but I could stay. Oh, cooking. When you cook, they have a boiling point. They become carcinogenic, causing cancer if you cook with low boiling point oils, which are all those oils we just said, right? Canola, sunflower. There's a dozen of them. Extra virgin has a lower cooking point than regular virgin olive oil. So I have than regular oil. So I have two different olive oils. I got a extra virgin and the one I use regular. It doesn't say extra virgin for my cooking. Coconut oil has a higher boiling point, but it changes the flavor of your food. So excessive fats and oils, we need to have some in every meal, but you're excessive when you're eating all of the other stuff that's junk food basically, and also in dressings. We also need to eat less meat. See, if what we ate 100 years ago where they shot it, skinned it, you wore its coat, I don't want to be Grizzly Adams, but you ate something that was not, and this is regular meat now, feeds on what? I wish it was grass. Pesticides, preservatives, corn, shot up with hormones and antibiotics. Remember we said we're 5% of the world's population consuming 60% of the world's drugs? 40 of that 60% is antibiotics and steroids they give to the meat and the chickens that we eat. Grass-fed beef, on the other hand, has as much or more omega oils as fish. It also has a lot of great nutrients for brain health. So grass-fed, you could get, Trader Joe's has some. They have it in North Shore Farms. I searched all over. Charlie and Son, it's a butcher right down here on 150th off of 14th Avenue. I go once a week, maybe twice, either chicken or meat. But now you say, well, I eat chicken. Well, chicken grazes on what? Pesticides, preservatives, and it's shot up with hormones and never sees the light of day. Some chickens genetically aren't growing arms because they never get out. Cage-free, for your eggs too, doesn't mean cage-free. They have to be pasture-raised. And we're going to talk about sources of protein when we get to eggs. But again, Murray's chicken in most supermarkets, Bell and Evans has two different varieties. One is organic and free range. All chicken now has no antibiotics. So Purdue, champions this, we don't have antibiotics. None of them have antibiotics. It's a state law in New York anyway. But they do get shot up with steroids. So, eat less animal flesh. Acidic foods, which are the waters we're drinking, and the foods are frozen canned crap. And I can't word it any better than that. And by the way, back to the fats and oils with fish, have to be careful with mercury. The larger fish, swordfish, tuna, forget tuna in the can, that's not even food. I eat tuna maybe every 2 to 3 months. Fresh tuna, grade A tuna, but it has a high mercury content. So you got to be careful with those two. Now, the other one, which is kind of amazing, is wheat, pasta, and flour. There's a great book called Wheat Belly, written by a cardiologist. And he talks about why 70% of people are 20 to 30 pounds overweight. It's not the soft drinks, they're not great. It's not McDonald's, it's wheat. Heart-healthy wheat is how it's advertised, which really irks the hell out of me, because there's nothing heart-healthy about it. In fact, the reason it's a problem is because it raises your sugar levels. So there's something called your insulin resistance, and they measure that by seeing how much insulin you got to produce for a certain amount of glucose. So if you produce, say you eat a half of sandwich, 1/2 of bread, even wheat bread, and a Snickers bar, your glycemic index to produce the insulin is more for what? You know the way I frame that again. More for a half a sandwich than a Snickers bar. It's genetically modified, has 46 rather than 23 chromosomes. It is terrible for us. It clogs our arteries. So when we go out to eat, by the way, what do we get? We get the meat, the potatoes, the bread, what else? The rice, don't forget the dessert, and over in the corner, the frozen canned, cooked to death vegetable. What did we say? Consuming living waters and living foods. The more you cook it, the nutrients go up in the smoke and the water stays in the pot. Some theories say eat 50% raw. Nutritional theory changes any 20 minutes. Some vegetables you cook and they activate certain ingredients like tomatoes. So this is the bottom line. Number one, the next time you go shopping, see how much time you spend in the first 2 aisles. What's in the first 2 aisles? Produce. If you're spending all your time and checking out with all the stuff from the 38 other shelves, where stuff lives there for 500 years because bacteria won't even eat it, it's not a living water and a living food. The only fruit that should ripen on your counter is a vegetable. I'm sorry. Don't worry, English kicks in after 10:30. The only fruit that should ripen on your counter is a banana. Everything else, the closer you get to it being ripe when you buy it, it has more nutrients in it. Have a brush on your windowsill to wash your vegetables. Change it often. If you're going to juice organic, or you're going to get a high concentration of pesticides and preservatives. Alrighty, we're going to move on. Second concept we said. Basic physiology. If you don't use it, you lose it. When you put a specific part of the body into motion, thank you for turning your page, the body responds by sending more nutrients, blood, and energy to that area. That increases the vitality of everything in your body. Specific benefits of aerobic training: your heart operates more efficiently. It will rust out long before it wears out. It's meant to be used. Your blood vessels become enlarged, making them more pliable and reducing the resistance to blood flow. Your blood volume, the amount of blood you have increases, especially red blood cells and hemoglobin. What do red blood cells and hemoglobin carry to your cells? Oxygen, so they can replace normally. It helps you eat better. It helps you digest better. And exercise helps you eliminate waste better. That's why exercise reduces a lot of forms of cancer, because you're getting rid of the toxins. They're not staying in your system. Number one reason I exercise, I feel like David Letterman, the number one, that's an old show most of you don't know about. It increases your energy level, not a rare tropical disease I have. It helps you look better physically, emotionally as well. It increases the good cholesterol, decreases the bad cholesterol, decreases depression. It helps in so many ways. So there are 3 types of exercise we mentioned. This is by far the most important. We're going to teach a 5-step program. It incorporates the second part, which is flexibility. The yogis believe you're as old as your spine. Could you run up and grab that spine? Because I am definitely going to need that. And I knew I forgot it. It's in the open adjusting by table 3. Thank you, Mirka. Thank you. Appreciate it. Because I went to look for it, and I didn't bring my best friend to the party.
I'll get it.
So, again, the yogis believe you're as old as your spine. They live to 120, 30 years of age because they keep it flexible. And we're going to talk about that as well. And the third type of exercise is strengthening, which we're going to get to, but by far this is the most important. Consists of this 5 steps, a warm-up. Get your heart rate pumping before you do. What does a cat do? The first thing it does when it wakes up? Stretches. Make sure you're stretching. Do not bounce. You get to a certain point, you stay there. You get to a certain point, you get to a certain point, but do not bounce. Then you are at your ideal heart rate. Your ideal heart rate for 20 to 30 minutes minimum. Thank you, Mirka. Thank you very much, my dear friend. Don't go anywhere without him. You conclude with a 5 to 10 minute cool down, and then you stretch. So this incorporates, again, those 2 of the 3 types of exercise. And what is your ideal heart rate, and what does it do? Well, your ideal heart rate is 180 minus your age. You could take 220 minus your age times 80%, but 180 minus your age will get you on the map. You count your pulse for 15 seconds, multiply by 4. You can get a polar heart monitor. They're not very costly. Again, what this does, it burns fat, it maximizes water to your cells, it will give you energy, and you will get rid of toxins. Find something you enjoy doing. Find a partner you enjoy doing it with. Do it 3 times a week minimum. Presidential Council on Physical Health and Sports says every day an hour, 12,000 steps. But there is one thing better than this, and we're going to cover that. Think about this in nature. Did we ever run for 20 to 30 minutes at one? So if you're like me and you're 35, 100 minus 35, anybody get that? No. My heart rate would be 145. I'm staying that. Housework, they've done research, is not aerobic exercise. So housework doesn't do what you got to do. Hiking, bicycling, you may have to power walk to get your heart rate to that level. But in nature, did we ever do that? Well, we might have, but more often we prayed on something, we ran as fast as we can, and then we cooled down, and then before something preyed on us, we hauled our coolie out of there, right? That's called interval training, and this is the research they found. When you do an aerobic training, you may burn 200 to 300 calories. When you do interval training, you work your heart much harder, your heart, plus you get something called afterburn. You burn another 200 or 300 calories throughout the day. And that's why exercise does not cause weight loss. That's a fallacy. You're going to put the same calories right back in. But if you're interval, now the most intense are Tabatas, which are 20 seconds on, 10 off. You could also do 60 and 30. Now, I was on the bike this morning. I canceled certain things to be able to do my Peloton. I used to go to the gym. I'm not going right now. The point is, I did that interval for 30 minutes. I could do it in 20 minutes and get the same benefit of 45 minutes at the same heart rate. A better benefit. So if you're not exercising, do this first. Get your aerobic base. And if you're going to do strengthening, we're going to talk about that, you must have a good aerobic base for 2 to 3 months before you do strengthening. But then build to interval. And the best is do interval a couple of times a week and do this endurance, more lower paced heartbeat a couple of times a week. Now strengthening is very important the older we get because it allows muscle mass to stay, and when we lose muscle mass, we lose our metabolism. It slows down because muscle burns faster and we tend to gain more weight. So it also shores up the joints and prevents arthritic changes. So we could be all evening on any one of these, so we're going to move on. What did we say the third concept was? Mental attitude. The mind and body are always connected. Anybody not subject to the stress of life? If you are not, you're 6 feet under dirt. If you're on the right side of the grass, you're going to have stress. They come in 3 forms: physical, emotional, and chemical. It's not the stress that's the problem, folks. It's how we interpret and how we react to stress. You could put 2 people in a stressful event. One will come down beaten down, and one will come stronger, or at least neutral. It's how you interpret stress by changing your physiology. The only way you take this thing you can't measure, can't identify, and manifests a health problem is it's got to change your physiology. And specifically, it's going to change your posture and your breathing. So the next time you scold your child, or if you have one, or if somebody scolds you, look at where your posture goes. And then look how you breathe. What does that do to your cells? It cuts off oxygen and nerve energy. So the next time you're stressed, folks, this is not Pollyannas. Put your shoulders back. We talked about breathing earlier. When we breathe, our diaphragm should come down. Our belly should come out, hopefully not over our belt line. So when we breathe in, the diaphragm should come down. When we breathe out, it should come up. When we're stressed, we breathe the opposite way. So our posture shifts too. So change your physiology when you're in unrelenting stress. The other thing you have to watch out is the power of your words and how you use your mind. Your words are hormonally charged. Your words, your mind, let's put it this way, cannot tell the difference between something said with emotion regularly and reality. Muhammad Ali, best boxer probably, arguably, maybe not, that ever existed. Wasn't the fastest, wasn't the strongest. I am the greatest. You know how many times he said, I am the greatest? What do you say when you wake up in the morning? Oh, it's going to be a wonderful day. Oh, I wake up every single morning I say an affirmation. It's when the mind is most susceptible. I am healthy, I feel terrific, I eat wholesome, nutritious foods, I exercise regularly, I'm going to take care and serve a lot of people today. And this is what happens. If you don't do it, guess what? There's another voice that over here says liar. Pants on fire. No, it doesn't say pants on fire. The point is, if you say it with emotion over and over, your mind will believe what you say. And this is especially with your children. Don't ever tell them what they can't do. You know, they've done studies where they had somebody sick, and this is in Harvard Medical School, 50 people, not just somebody, say, I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy. Guess what their white blood cells do? They go up. Larry Dossey, The Power of Prayer, MD, wrote this book. You could pray for somebody sick in California. Guess what their white blood cells do? They go up. Don't underappreciate the value of how you use your brain. Don't underappreciate not reading the front of the daily news. Don't underappreciate not watching the late night news before you go to bed and what that does to your subconscious mind. Don't underappreciate hanging out with stinky, thinky, doomy, gloomy people. I'm sorry if it's the person you sleep next to at night. Just kidding. Use your mind like it's your best friend and not your worst enemy. Don't allow anybody to say anything negative about yourself. I love Joel Osteen for several reasons. One, he has this great thing. He says when you know at a hotel you have a do not disturb thing. You put it, you hang it on the doorknob. Well, this is what he does when he has somebody telling him something he can't do, something negative in the world or negative about him. In his mind, he puts up the do not disturb. Sorry, that might be your reality, not my reality. So watch how you use your mind. So, last component. We're going to talk about, I'm semi-prepared. Here we go. I'm very prepared. We're going to talk about my 3 kids. Don't worry, I don't have any family vacation shots. No family photos. But again, I have 3 of the most wonderful human beings, all born with a midwife. My son, the oldest, being born at home. Our families were really supportive of that. Yeah, right. And when he comes home and he says, Dad, they didn't take me on the basketball team. Dad, Vanessa's not going to the dance. Dad, you're not giving me the keys to the car. Dad, my life stinks. I say, Stevie, your life is perfect. It happened about 270 to 280 days before you were born. You will never have to worry about another thing as long as you live. He looks at me with the same blank stare most of you are looking at me with, and I say, Stevie, you know what happened 270 to 280 days before you were born? There was this one thing swimming upstream, and there was this other thing planted upstream, we'll call her Miss E, and a few trillion, that's right, trillion of these other things swimming upstream, and if you guys don't get this yet, you're in trouble. And these 2 this one, out-penetrated, outperformed, outlasted, looked a little bit like moi, and these 2 half cells became 1 cell, 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, and up until 3 weeks of life, every single cell in the fetus looks identical. At 3 weeks of life, the first 2 organs, and you could turn your page here, please. The first 2 organs form. What do you think they are?
The heart.
Heart? Nope. Anybody else guessing? Brain? Did I hear that? And your spinal cord. It's called the primitive streak. So at 3 weeks of life, there's an electrical energy that cannot be explained where that comes from. Your brain directs energy over your spine to cells left of midline to become your heart, flopping balls, red ones here, your kidneys, 2 limb buds up here, 2 limb buds down there, your legs, till you come out looking like a ladybug. No. In fact, here we are, a home birth. My brother is running his business with the phone. It's he, my wife, and the midwife. And I said, Rick, can you turn down the ringer? He's kind of, we're trying to give birth here. You're interrupting. He turns the ringer off instead of down. Now both families are calling up, panicked because they're getting no answer, thinking we're all dead. They're rushing in. I'm rushing out to get them, pushing them out the door, and it seemed within seconds I'm upstairs and I'm holding Stevie's mother's leg and I'm looking and I'm going, I see a black ridge and I'm saying, oh my God, what are we doing? His head's deformed. Till I realize his hair is perfectly parted down the center. He sticks his head up like Yoda. Says, this ain't a bad place, I'll come a little further. 5 fingers come out. His fingernails look like they've been filed. He'd been to the beauty salon. 5 on this side. He plumps out. And my daughters are gorgeous creatures, but they had the vernix and all of that stuff. And this was one of those things, there's certain memories you will never, ever, ever forget. Well, this was it. Because I looked at the midwife and I said, now what? We kicked my brother out. You're leaving, and as god-awful crazy as this sounds, it's the truth. He's born at 9:14 on a Sunday, and I have office hours at 9 a.m. the next day here in Whitestone. And she says, have him sleep between you. And this is my memory I will never forget. I remember looking to my right, and it was 2:12. I saw on the clock. And I looked to my left, and there was my son, less than 12 hours old, wide awake, staring right at me. And my thought was this, and I remember like yesterday, what a miracle. What an energy that created from these 2 half cells this perfectly functioning human being that can run like a candle and burn from 120 to 130 years of age. Remember we talked about that? We are all designed with the same intelligence from that spark of life to burn like a candle our whole lives. And why? Because the purpose of that energy, the nervous system, is to control, what's the magic F word? That's out of Gray's Anatomy. The function of every tissue, cell, and organ in your body. So let's flash forward. My son now is 13 years of age. He goes on a student exchange program, great opportunity, the ambassador program from Eisenhower, and he goes to New Zealand and Australia for a month. But he eats a terrible diet, foods he's not used to, salty, monosodium glutamate, all that garbage. And now there's innate awareness for every innate need, by the way. There's something in him that knows how to deal with that crap. Sorry for my French. He's got to retain what? Water, right? What retains water? Well, you may see those kidneys down there. And what directs his kidneys? You may not be able to read that, but you may see it's green. It's the pelvic nerve. Slows things down, actually. But then things speed up from his lumbar splanchnic nerves, which are the sympathetics. So just like in nature, there's the yin, the yang, the male, the female, no different than in our bodies. One slows things down, the other speeds it up. But that's going to put strain on what? His heart's got to beat faster now. So he's got the cardiopulmonary nerve to speed it up and the vagus nerve to slow it down. There's that vagus nerve again, doing its job. And then his adrenal glands have to kick in some adrenaline. So now, his heart's beating faster. He comes home, may feel fatigued, may be tired, maybe even have a headache, right? And the people who take or love him the most take him where? To the doctor, right? Doctor checks his blood pressure and says, you have what? High blood pressure. And you need to do what? Take a drug. And you see, not that I would tell my son differently, but he's been educated and raised to think differently. Because if he gives himself 2 weeks, 2 months, what do you think he'll get rid of that extra salt, right? He'll just know how to do that. You know, I cut myself the other day, always doing something around the house. I didn't think much about it. Didn't even have to do, I just kept it clean. And the scab fell off, and here I am ready to go at it again. So, if my son is getting the messages to his kidneys and he's retaining water, but what happens if he doesn't get the message to his heart, or say his adrenal glands to kick in some adrenaline? Well, let me ask you this. What's the most common cause of nerve interference in the human body? See, and this is where I could commit suicide by jumping out the window, but it's kind of hard because we're in the basement. If I asked you if you had to have a headache in the evening, you take Excedrin, what, PM? You're old enough, you have Tylenol for who? For juniors? How do you spell relief? R-L-A-I-D-S? We know all the jingles. But we have not had an opportunity to learn what runs our body and what interferes with the process of how our bodies heal. The most common cause of nerve interference is vertebral subluxation. Sub, less than a complete dislocation. Or the Latin derivative, sublight. So, how does that happen? Well, say my son is riding in a flume or whatever they ride in New Zealand and Australia. He's on this sled and his body gets thrown out of position and the vertebra in his spine gets misaligned. A physical stress, right? Impinges a nerve. Does he feel that? Not necessarily. 80 to 85% of any of the 31 pairs off at each side, most of the fibers of the nerve are the autonomic nerve system, do not relay pain. So now he's got this misalignment, but he goes into his room, he stretches, he does some yoga position, and the vertebra corrects itself, which is what we do all the time. But guess what? Then he gets a call from Vanessa. And Vanessa says, not only am I not going to the dance, it's the prom, and I'm going with my best friend. I paint a terrible picture, don't I? So now he gets this emotional stress, and the vertebra locks up again. But then he does some meditation, some deep breathing, abdominal, as we just taught, and that thing releases. But then he goes to that same restaurant and eats that same laden, chemically crappy meal. And now his nerves have to recognize that with pesticides and preservatives and cause that vertebra to shift. So the reason I go through that scenario, folks, is very well intended. The red light to our nervous system is this thing called the subluxation. It's an interference to the nerve system due to physical, emotional, and chemical stresses. I hear you paging. If you page a few pages down, you will see some letters and some black boxes. And what page is after understanding subluxation? 16, it says on the top, where we can list the stresses we've been subject to. But let me ask you something, folks. What's the most common physical stress? Well, let me hold this for a second, because this will illustrate it. What's the most common physical stress we all have? Can't avoid this.
Work.
I'm sorry?
Work.
Birth?
Work.
Work? Well, that's after you're born. How about birthing? How about what position is mom in when she's giving birth? On her back with the angle of the birth canal pointing 20 to 30 degrees uphill, with the major blood and nerve supply to get these muscles, to get the baby out, being compromised. So now, we gave birth for many, many years hanging from trees. In this country, it is done out of convenience for who? The doctor. Not the person. A normal, natural birth. This is the natural childbirth. They rotate the head 180 degrees, which is, I'm looking at that screen, and they use 60 to 90 pounds of pressure. 90% of us are born this way. 120 pounds decapitates, takes the head off. And then they rotate the opposite shoulder 180 degrees, and the normal process is made into a medical one. They use these things today. Still, my friend has a pair of these things called forceps. Severe subluxation caused. And then C-sections, they think you open you up like a pea out of a pod and just pull you out. No, it don't work that way. When you go through the birth canal, it massages all of the mucus out of your nasal passageways. Now they put a bulb, which causes chemical subluxation. Plus, you don't get your head shaped through going through the birth canal over the first bone in your neck. And that's why they have weird shaped heads. And I've seen a lot of C-section kids with traumatic childbirths. And look at this one. This guy still has his ring on. And how does a baby come out? Hi. Let's have a party. Let's go. No, they come out screaming and ranting because it's not how we should begin our life. Less than 100%. And I'll tell you what, folks, if you're not sure that we get subluxated at birth, I invite you to come when we check a baby. And I do a lot of this in mission in Haiti. We're in Haiti, we're in every hospital, every school, every church. And they're a drug culture, right? Everywhere in the world is a drug culture. But in Haiti, where you say, God heals us, God blessed our hands, God runs from our brain to every tissue cell, they say, where's the table? I'm bringing my family. I want everybody to get checked. And I see kids who've been on a ventilator, and when I teach, the students do not want to make rounds. We're in the hospital. They want to make the rounds, excuse me. They don't want to do the adjusting right away. So I get to adjust every kid. We adjust every patient, every doctor, every staff person. And you will see miracles you could not believe from one simple thing. Taking pressure off the atlas vertebra, which affects cord compression, and allowing for the first time for that baby to get energy from their brain to their cells. And I remember one kid, he was about 4 months old. We had about 8 tables, students in front of me, about 8 to the side. I'm running around and just teaching, and I see this baby crying, and I see it's got all this mucus coming in and out. It's labored breathing, no diaper. They have no diapers in Haiti. And I know he's making his way to me. Finally gets up front. We put him upside down. His head goes like this because he's misaligned. We palpate. We do a slight adjustment about the weight of a quarter like that, even a dime. You hear a little. The baby stops crying. It took him like 10 minutes to get on the mom's lap. Stops crying. They hand the baby to me. It stops. Its chest starts breathing normally. And then I go to give him back to his mom, and he won't go back. He starts crying again. And he just stares at me. And I think again, what was that baby thinking? What was it feeling? What was it connecting with me the first time it had some irritation shutting off life from its brain into its body? And this is why I suggest to you folks, I'm going to ask for your help in several ways. Number one, I'm going to give you this presentation card. 1 being the best, 5 not so good. You'll have them downloaded if you haven't already for those watching at home. I'm going to ask you to rate me on the information, the self-help guide, the computer, your comments. I've had some great comments. On the reverse side of this card, there's a place here if you'd like us to lecture. We're going to resume lecturing again. We've been to places of employment, churches, synagogues, everywhere you can imagine. If you want to receive our email newsletter, please print your name there. If you want somebody to attend the workshop, list their name, tell them we're going to invite them. And if you want somebody in your family to be checked, and if it's a child, let them know. I will call them, we'll speak, I'll cook them breakfast. In fact, if you don't put your children on this form, I'm going to come kidnap them, and I'm going to check them. I'm half serious, I hate to tell you. And the second way I'm going to ask for your help, these are our children in Haiti. So from going to Haiti, and I went about 8 years, there was the earthquake that happened in 2010. And my friend who runs the mission, he's a chiropractor, and he has connections with the schools that I have, but this is his way of bringing students down and teaching them chiropractic. I teach them philosophy and technique. But from the earthquake, there were 300,000 orphans in like 20 minutes because all the parents were in the buildings that weren't built to code. And a friend of ours in Haiti, like 8 hours away, was taking care of about 8 kids. Alex. We put up these other kids in tents, and they had nowhere to go. So Alex inherited about another 20 kids, quit his job as a pharmacist, and then when most of them entered the school system, they were homeschooled, there was no way to educate them. So my wife and I formed our own foundation for their education. So we're committed to educating them, and I'll tell you how you can help, but we also educate another 100 children up the road at Pastor Prosper, orphans and other underprivileged kids. He is the real deal. We built an orphanage for our children so they have a safe place to sleep, and we're about a third building a church and a school where these other 100 people come to Pastor Prosper. So it really is a marvelous thing because every dollar goes to them. We have 0 administrative costs. You know, I produce this box, which is one way you could help. Each time you come in, you could put $1. We accept $100 bills. You can also sponsor a child. It's $15 a month. There's a way to do that on our website. You could also just give a check. It's $180 a year, and again, every single dollar goes to their education. So we also are collecting shoes upstairs, as you see from the letter. We have specific sizes. I will be down there soon bringing that down, and we hope you can help them. I'm going to hand you this card. I'm going to ask you to please fill it out now if you can. If not, bring it back, but I would really like for you to fill that out. I'm going to have it will only take a few minutes, and I'm going to have the clipboard upstairs. You're welcome. I'm going to come around so you could sign up for the basic if you have not. There you go. And I need to, I'm sorry, that's my new size 11 feet.